Roblox lets you do anything. If you find going to the gym to be too much work, then you could just get yoked in a video game instead. It takes basically the same amount of effort. If you want to truly test your courage and dare the daunting and dastardly, you can take a trip to the Tower of Hell. You can even express your innermost desires to become one with the unyielding and divine femininity and stun onlookers on the runway. You know, if that's what you want to do. I'm not saying I would or anything. No, I like to feel pretty, okay? But there's a particular Roblox game I had in mind to discuss today. That game being Phantom Forces. A game that I guess would be considered a single-A first-person shooter. Because, God knows there's no budget here. Phantom Forces is a game I found myself coming back to a lot over the years, whether it be on computer or console. I guess there's just something inherently fulfilling about this kind of gameplay loop that triggers a neuron activation in my ape gamer brain. After returning to the game once again around the start of this year, I started to ponder why exactly I come back to this one and not Call of Duty or Battlefield or any other AAA first-person shooter. The answer is that this one doesn't cost $80. Despite looking like a VR rendering of a Desert Storm Playmobil set, I'd say that Phantom Forces works because of that. Phantom Forces plays as smooth as a game on Roblox can be, which is leagues better than Battlefield 2042 at launch at least. Doesn't mean you can't pull some game engine wizardry, however, like using the spell of levitation to double jump dolphin dive yourself into the air while standing back up. Well, I'm thinking it's high time to stop talking about the game and start playing it. Now, if you would please put on your cat ear headphones and strap into your DXR racing chair, then we can begin the tour. As far as weapons goes, there is more than enough to go around. You have AK-1, AK-2, AK-3, AK-4, AK-5, and let's not forget M41, M42, M43, M44, and you can pair that main dish of reformatted rifles with a side of Glock 1, Glock 2, Glock 3, Glock 4. Honestly though, the weapon selection in Phantom Forces is pretty damn fantastic. It's of course got the weapon category standards of assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, sniper rifles, LMGs, DMRs, pistols, you know the gist. Oddly enough, having an entire section for carbines, battle rifles, and other. Assault rifles are the tried and trues. You'll be spending a lot of time in this section if you were deemed unimaginative by your school counselor. It's got all the ass you could ever want. Assault rifles, that is. An awe-inspiring amount of AKs and M4s are accounted for. Modern classics like the Scar L, G36, and AUG show up. Even some deeper cuts like the G11 and STG44 are available for unlock. I use the M16A3 the most, but if you want to pretend you're using a rifle from the future, you can kit the shit out of a Type 20 with lasers and take the iron sights off and pretend you're playing Battlefront 3. They also have strong enough bullet penetration to go through lighter surfaces like Example 1 I didn't get and Example 2 I couldn't find. You know what to expect, and you can't really go wrong with them, but you sure can digitally cosplay a jarhead who will meet their untimely demise mere days after this mission from an IED in the road. SMGs are always the right tool for a smooth operator. Faster fire rate on average than assault rifles and LMGs, but less punch and viable range. Great for small to medium range encounters and spray and praying entire magazines upon hearing a pin drop. It has enough Uzis, MAC-10s, and Tommy guns to please a mob boss, and enough MP5s, UMP45s, and P90s to please the federal agents hunting the mob boss down. I use these most of the time because I love being fast enough to just zip around everywhere and take cheap shots at people already in firefights. You call it a cowardly tactic only used by a loser. I call it survival of the laziest. LMGs are very fun weapons to fire and just keep firing. They typically have the highest magazine sizes out of all weapon types, damage on the higher end, and better bullet penetration in exchange for an abhorrently slow movement speed. I guess the reload speed is pretty slow too, but with these magazine sizes, you shouldn't have to worry about that. Unless you're a dipshit who had to file for virtual bankruptcy buying the one LMG that has 50 bullets for its inconceivably high fire rate.
It costs $400,000 to fire this weapon for 12 seconds.
That's right. I blew all the money I had at some point on a tricked at MG3 KWS, and boy is it ever impractical, but boy is it ever entertaining. LMGs like the M60 and MG36 are always a spectacle to behold, and interesting picks like the chainsaw and the bar are present too. Don't ever really see these used much save for maps with long sight lines ideal for constant suppressing fire like Metro. Battle rifles are the designation given to the assault rifle's slightly more methodical brethren, mostly for mid to long range with semi-sluggish average fire rates and smaller magazine sizes. My favorite battle rifle is the M14, because you can use the iron sights, aim it, select automatic fire, and lose all sight of your target. I don't use these much because they require accuracy, but the Henry 4570 is always badass, and it only costs half your life in experience or all your wallet and money. That's kind of a running problem you're gonna see with all of these guns. The really cool ones are at about, rank 150. Carbines are the battle rifle's equivalent of submachine guns. Does that make sense? No, not really. Am I going to think of something else by recording time? No, not really. It has an even split between uninspired conversions of previous weapons, absolute whack job mad scientist machines, and Red Dead Redemption asset flips.
Lumbago.
Be honest, what would you rather pick? Another AK-12 or a gyrojet? The right answer is an 1858 carbine. They are probably the weapons I use the least. Don't get me wrong. Guns like the Honey Badger and the K1A are fun to hail bullets upon enemies with, but dear God, I am not getting to rank 93 to use the mechanically different and interesting carbines, and most of the earlier rank carbines have cooler older siblings in other categories. DMRs function like battle rifles if someone glued the fire type selector to single fire.
It's not called that, dumbass.
Oh, please, I'm talking about a game made with the same visuals as Adopt Me. You think I cared that much about accuracy?
Whoa! Is that blackface, dude?
No, this isn't blackface. I'm an actual demon.
You really have to land your shots with these, which I am quite possibly physically incapable of if you couldn't tell by the footage playing in the background. But they have large enough magazines to give a slight amount of grace, and enough damage to give you a fighting chance, even if you can only land a couple shots. In essence, weak snipers for weak-willed toddlers who don't put 1,000 hours into aim labs every month until the heat death of the universe. Just get good, man. Sniper rifles, as they are in all games with any other weapon besides sniper rifles, are the bane of my enjoyment. You'll find these in the hands of someone in a corner several football fields away from your current location. If you are moving to the front lines and hear a distinct go past your slightly jostling screen, know that you are soon to be eliminated. Unless it's me, in which you have about another magazine and a half to leave before it's too late.
Sniping's a good job, mate. Not a crazed gunman, Dad. I'm an assassin. What a difference being one has a job and the other's mental sickness. Be polite. Be efficient. Have a plan to kill everyone you meet.
The AWS, an integrally suppressed op, is the prime choice for a sniper who doesn't want to worry about people noticing all the shots they're missing, and the intervention triggers the nostalgia center in your brain to remember a classic FPS game, so it kinda gets points for that. What it loses points for, though, is the amount of snipers that are two-shot kills when not headshotting. Like Christ, I could barely hit them center mass. You expect me to be able to do it again? Shotguns are, one could say, a representation of the classical tale of Icarus, though the wings are actually a bunch of Mossbergs held together by duct tape, and the sun is actually a guy named Captain DJ Swagmaster holding an assault rifle. As to be expected, shotguns have devastating close-range capabilities that quickly diminish the further your opponents get, though you can still get some good long shots with finely placed repeat shots. The Stevens DB is the best shotgun. It doesn't have the best range, or magazine size, or damage per second, or reload speed, but it's a break-action double-barreled shotgun, so it automatically wins. If you want something a little more practical, then the DBV-12 and the Saiga-12 are semi-auto alternatives that have more than enough shells to secure a kill. Go on. It's okay to pick over the double barrel. Seriously, I won't think any less of you, or spit in your face and call you loser McSpitface. I promise.
Fuck you! You fucking damn you piece of
Shotguns get the seal of approval from me because they make it really hard to miss with them. Hey, did you know that switching to your pistol is always faster than reloading? Make sure your pistol isn't a Zip 22 though, because you'd probably do more damage throwing the empty magazine at their heads. They are too exceptional for range or visual clarity in most cases, but all of them have pretty tight hipfire spreads, making them the perfect tool for robocopping teenagers awake far past their bedtime. The Desert Eagle brings quite a punch in terms of damage and recoil. The M45A1 is a strong alternative to the M1911A1, and the Zip 22 is and never will be comparable to either, and I wish it would just give up and self-immolate so I could piss on its sad little cardboard box grave. Machine pistols are pistols, but better. How are they better, you ask? Because you can take them out of your pocket and ice pesky snipers with the entirety of an 18-bullet magazine in mere moments. That's why. In all seriousness, though, machine pistols are great pistol alternatives with significantly higher fire rates. As long as you aren't at a distance where recoil and damage fall off becomes an issue, because it's especially bad for them. The Glock 18 is always a fast-paced joyride to use, and if you're worried about conserving bullets, the Burstfire 9.3R is a decent choice also. Or if you want to avoid using a weak and meager pistol altogether, you can use the PP2000, which might as well be an SMG. Revolvers are always my choice pick when I want to pretend I'm playing Fallout New Vegas without cleaning out an incorrectly formatted mod list for the next year of my life. Consistently better range damage and penetration than pistols at the expected downside of smaller magazines and longer reload times. I use the new Army 1858 the most to remind me of my former life in the Civil War, I imagine, from watching The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But the Matiba, and especially the Judge, are always good picks too. Hipfire kills feel way more satisfying to pull off with the revolvers. If only you could wear a 10-gallon hat instead of a helmet. Others are nothing you're going to be playing with until rank 75, except for the Super Short Team, my beloved. Out of the 8 weapons in this category, 5 of them are existing weapons with the barrels, and I'd imagine all safety measures, cut off. One of them's a grenade launcher, one of them's a fucking coil gun, and the last one is a dart gun. Others, huh? With all these repeats, they should have called it the same, am I right, fellas? These are for when you feel like having a primary as a secondary. In that case, they do the job quite fine. It does kinda suck that you get the Super Shorty at rank 38 and then zilch until rank 75 though. Shit, you almost forget the category exists by then. Melee weapons have 4 categories of their own, but I use them so truly little that I'm doing them all in one segment, partially for brevity, mostly for lack of caring. One-handed blade is bladed weapons you use with one hand. You stab fast and run faster. Two-handed blade is bladed weapons you use with 2 hands. You don't run as fast, but you look cooler. One-handed blunt is tools mostly designed for bludgeoning and brutalizing, minus the visual brutality, of course. I got Thor's hammer with a camo sticker I bought off Temu and slapped on it, so that's pretty cool. Two-handed blunt is in fact another category of melee weapons. Take a wild fucking guess at how many hands you need to wield them. Grenades are the backup to your backups, and the perfect tool to clear out congested hallways. As with everything else, there are a few categories to choose from. Okay, I know that grenades are an incredible assisting tool in everyone's arsenal, and I know that they are lethal when used properly, but for some reason I routinely forget they exist. Like, I'll see grenades being thrown, possibly even die from one, but I never take a moment to think about why I'm not doing that. And every time I do remember, I just end up lazily tossing them down some choke point. Fragmentation is your no-frills boom balls. They are all lethal as long as the enemy is in a close-ish radius, and damage drops off to useless in the amount of distance it takes to run away in a second. You can use the timer of the grenade to calculate the closest explosion possible, but hey, not everyone's Sherlock Holmes, okay? High explosive is a bigger blast at the cost of a heavier projectile. Dynamite is always handy for a darn tootin' prospector, but the delayed explosion that saved their life will become your burden. Good for game modes like Flare Domination or Hardpoint, where you can blow up anyone on the objective. There is other grenades here too, by the way, yet none have the rustic charm of dynamite. Impact has the power of immediate gratification, but with all cheap addictions, it never gets you far. The first one unlocks at rank 80, and I am still not that, so perchance impacts are better used as a finishing tool for the injured. Perchance. A lot of the weapons have an alternate first-person view model you can use by pressing T at any time. For pistols, it lets you hold your strap sideways. The shotguns get 2 extra view models, one from the side, and then one straight in the middle of the screen like you're playing Doom. What? Do you hear that music? Oh god. No, what's happening to my screen? No! LMGs get one too, and some guns like the Desert Eagle have their own slightly different view models for whatever reason. Because it felt like it, I guess. I mean, who am I to bitch? It's more content, right? There's a hell of a lot of attachments. Attachments that can basically turn weapons into a whole different gun depending on how you mix and match them. For shit to throw on the barrel, there's a series of suppressors, each with their own pros and cons. Some reduce your reveal range, making it harder for enemies to spot you on the map, whilst taking away from your damage output. Others can help with recoil in exchange for mobility. If you want to hide the blast but not the noise, then there's the flash hider too, if you're a freak like that. If recoil reduction takes priority over sound, then a compensator or a muzzle brake might be what you need. You can cut the barrel down for some added mobility at the cost of range and accuracy, or tape a big metal pipe to the end of the gun for the opposite effect. There's a red, green, blue, and yellow laser, alongside a tri-laser that's 3 reds in 1. Each of them affect hipfire speed, general stability, and recoil in some way or another, but all result in some recoil reduction and smoother weapon handling with no apparent downside. Grips are all about the balance between hipfiring and aiming down sights. If it really helps your ADS handling, then it'll really hurt your hipfire handling. If you can never have enough lasers in your life, then the Hera grip will scratch that itch. And if you just hate looking through your scope to the point where you would rather not have the function to do it, then the chainsaw grip has the cure for you. Optics offer you a Cro-Magnon feast of viewfinders fit for any not-so-keen eyes. Most if not all iron sights, the sights that come with the weapon, are available for use on each gun as long as you meet the kill quota. I guess this is a better time than never to mention that, save for a few exceptions like adjustable folding grips on guns that come with them, and your trusty flashlight, any attachment requires a certain amount of kills before you can use them. This amount can be anywhere from 10 to 6,000, but I seriously doubt many people see to 100%ing a weapon. Red dots is the category for sights that don't have the zoom of a scope or the simplicity of an iron sight, instead finding a versatile middle ground. Tons of variation in red dots, reflexes, and holographic sights are present. The Mars even gives you a slight stat boost from its integral red laser. Scopes let you magnify your target far past the necessary limit for most weapons. Like, come on, it's the same damn size as the Mac-10 and has a 10 times zoom. In what situation would that ever prove to be helpful? Because of this, scopes are something you only get 1 or 2 of every couple hundred kills. Special sights are the other of optics. Some of them aren't even optics, making them certainly special to use as one. If you didn't like the underbarrel flashlight because it was too small, then you can get it supersized. Just make sure it isn't hiding liver failure. Other has the whole shebang. Another slot for lasers, now including the quite snazzy ballistics tracker. Another slot for backup sights, weapon modifications that can alter the mobility, handling, firing type, stuff like that. And stocks, which serve a similar function to swapping out barrels. And last but not least, ammo opens you up to much more punishing possibilities. Possibilities that have no complete net gain, however. Your ammo type can alter your range, recoil, damage, bullet penetration, and magazine size depending on what you pick. Some are changes to the bullet, like hollow points and armor-piercing rounds, but others are entire ammo type conversions, changing the name designation of the weapon. These don't have any presence until you get 1,000 kills, so I hope you like the gun you unlocked it on, dummy. Overall, the gunplay in this game is surprisingly good. Everything feels fluid, guns have all kind of recoil differences, making weapons a lot more unique in themselves, same for scopes, and the customization potential is immense. Small additions like alternate view modes and fire types aren't as utilized by players as they probably should be. I'd argue that the alternate view is better for shotguns. Like, do you really need to look down the scope when your weapon is known for its lack of precision? And for as much as I ragged on the light recycling of weapons, all the unique conversions and quirks do keep them quite separate from each other playstyle-wise. When I think about the maps in this game, I can't think of any ones that really pop out or have their own flair. They just kind of feel like the rough renderings of filler maps they throw into Call of Duty's multiplayer. Height is kind of miserable to play on. You'll be dealing with volleys of snipers shooting you from distances a Navy SEAL could only wish to achieve. And literally half the map is extended choke points laden with prone, ankle-biting assassins lying in wait. Don't stop moving, because the second you do, you are dead meat. Warehouse is what happens when Costco raises the price of the hot dog by 10 cents, and what I imagine most airsoft places look like. It's not particularly larger than any of the other maps to my knowledge, but god, it feels like it takes forever to navigate around the plywood. The plywood does give quite an advantage to weapons with good bullet penetration, however, making drunkenly stumbling around with an M60 like someone's Uncle Johnny during 4th of July a half-decent strategy. The most notable thing I can say for this map is that I apparently had a cursed UMP-45 capable of killing a guy and the ghost that was behind him. Yes, I was listening to Limp Bizkit at the time. Before you ask, no, I did not know it was picking up audio outside of the game. Yes, I do feel ashamed for listening to Fred Durst's Filthy Delusions. Desert Storm is the vaguely Middle Eastern location ideal for urban warfare every modern first-person shooter has to have. I blame Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. You know, the original one. It's one of the better ones, but that doesn't save it from feeling very formulaic. If you have any short to medium range weapons, be prepared to enter a never-ending parkour competition, ducking and dodging through the underground and connected buildings. And if you have longer range weapons, get ready to engage in a very vertical trench warfare with people across the line taking pot shots. Second Storm is Desert Storm, now with 50% more desert. It is so unpopular that in the hours of playing I did for this, I only got to play this map for 20 seconds at the ass end when I joined a new server. Yes, end of match quote. Perhaps we have. But from what I saw, it is in fact another Desert Storm. Mall is a map where you don't really want to be in the bottom half of it. The crane sightline combined with the wide open center so that you get hellfire rained upon you every time you attempt to take a stroll through make it a tad difficult to get an edge up from underneath. You'll hardly ever be fighting anybody inside the mall, cause they all just try and get to the top instead. Mall Revamp, on the other hand, is pretty fun. It has less sightline issues than the original mall, and an almost castle-like look to it, with a lot more reason to be in the lower levels because there's actually people fighting there. The castle look helps to differentiate it from the original mall, even though it kinda seems like a sneaky repurposing of assets from Castle Keep. Bazaar Revamp is a bunch of hallways with some moderately sized places to hide in. It doesn't seem like it, but it sure as hell feels like it when you spawn in the same goddamn stretch and get sniped by the same goddamn guy for the goddamn third time in a goddamn row. God damn it! This is a map where I try to stay on the enemy side as much as possible so that I can pick them off before they find a good defensive position to lay hellfire in a straight line for the next 5 minutes. Also, I'm more than sure there was some light inspiration from Counter-Strike for this map. Not that it's obvious or anything. Okay, map, 12 out of 10, the end. With all the high-rises, as in almost exclusively high-rises, Winterridge is sniper supremacy. It doesn't help that there is little to no hidden ground outside of the towers, so get ready to get John Fitzgerald Kennedy'd. It's not impossible to play with short-ranged weapons. Not something I would recommend, but it's possible. If they really wanted to make this map fun, they should have implemented a 45-second timer before you freeze to death whenever you go outside. Dust Bowl is one of the better maps simply because the map designers finally realized there are other colors than Urban Gray and Breaking Bad Mexico Filter Yellow. If you don't want to deal with long-range encounters, then I'd recommend staying low and close to the buildings surrounding the center. And if you want to actually deal with the consequences of your short-range armaments and short-term thinking, then you can run around the sides for the high risk of getting shot and the high reward of covertly disposing of unsuspecting conscripts. Speaking of Urban Gray, Highway Lot is another map I feel completely indifferent towards. It has a good mix of levels and spaces to it, but you'll be spending most of the time running to or fighting inside the buildings. Farmlands is an alright map that would be a lot better if it was a little smaller. The way it is at the moment, you're almost always going to be dealing with some guy on either side hiding all the way in the back, drawing all your attention. At least the building and prop placement helps to break map-wide lines of sight. Still pissed off I can't swim in the water, though. The farm aesthetic is a nice touch, with the barns and the cornfield and all that. I truly do wish I liked this map more than I do. Until I spawn already halfway into my grave again, then I feel I enjoyed the map a precisely adequate amount. Suburbia is the map I want Farmlands to be. It's just the right size, which is not what she said, by the way. The horde of houses dispels nearly all issues with sightlines and unbeatable bullet hails, and snipers are forced to go on the very visible rooftops to get good map coverage, so you can spot and dissolve them, thus feeding into both my hatred of snipers and hatred of rooftops. Containers O' Fun is the map where they said, "You need a map in 10 minutes?" Yeah, I can make shipment again. It is almost scientifically designed for destroying your hopes of a solid kill streak you got on a rapid-paced chance encounter with nothing but death for the next 2 minutes. Probably says a lot more about me than it does the map, however. If you need a lot of XP really fast, then just select Containers of Fun and make sure it's a game mode that doesn't have a set kill limit or anything, like a tag run. Metro is the map I have the most uncontainable spite and hatred for, and I really couldn't tell you why. I've had a pretty bad history with getting steamrolled on this map in the past, but the same could be said for all the maps, really. I guess because it has a pretty bad issue with succumbing to the multiple squares and rectangles in one big square style of map creation. Most of the action happens in the top level, but if you see an enemy sneaking into or near your spawn, kill them before they start laying volleys at your teammates across the entire train station. They are like mosquitoes, they are the most insufferable pests, and the only thing you can do is run away. Metro Revamp is so close to the original that it'd be more apt to call it Metro Redecorated. I don't hate it as much as Metro, mostly because I believe that you cannot blame a bastard child for having a bastard birther for a mother. The new shiny paint on the walls helps it feel less dated than its predecessor, and they at least threw some extra set dressing into the side rooms so they aren't entirely cube-shaped rooms in a cube-shaped map. But the nature of being an almost one-to-one of Metro means matches will play out nearly identical. Arcade machines are not. Dunes is another map with sniper issues. More like skill issues, nerd.
Who the fuck said that? I will emasculate you, you son of a bitch!
I found that the center is the least used part of this map, and people instead choose to bunker down on the buildings and the hills when they aren't busy rushing your flanks. You can get to all sides of the map through the hotels, save for the small jump you have to make across the two, so running out and mag dumping isn't the worst idea. For all intents and purposes, Dunes is one of the maps of all time. Facility is a map I find very confusing. I guess over-designed might be a better fit. There's so many catwalks and building sections within building sections and crowded side spaces that it's almost a little disorienting running from place to place. It's almost like going into another map altogether. It's not a bad map. You just need to play it a couple times to get used to it is all. Which I didn't get to do because it's not popular. Industry is without a shadow of a doubt a recreated Gmod map.
I'm gonna give you 3 seconds.
3 seconds to tell us.
1, 3.
The underground sections are helpful for moving across the map because people don't really like to fight down there. Funnily enough, most engagements occur on the streets before either side gets into a building. In my experience, of course. It's another one I feel pretty neutral on due to how little I've played on it. My negative ass will scope out some irrelevant and heavily personally biased issue with the map the next time I play it though, don't you worry. Penthouse is a decent map that reminds me of a cruise ship for some reason. In other maps with a wide open section in the center, you try to avoid it as much as possible, but there's enough coverage in the middle among all the other floors that you can use it to flank without getting flogged. There's also enough somewhat secluded nooks and crannies along the inside sections that you really don't have to fight much if you don't want to. The pristine white design style helps give it a little distinction from the other maps too. Castle Keep is a relic of a battlefield from a not-so-modern warfare. And hello, I'm just saying it's not much of a reach to say it's one of the more minimal maps spacing-wise. Destiny 2. But despite the lack of clutter and abundance of mostly open spaces, it works with the way they're placed in conjunction with the castle catwalks. Seriously, if those things weren't there, I'd have a much more sour opinion of this map. It's almost like they designed it. Castle Keep's good, but I almost feel like Mall Revamp is somehow the better version of it. Embassy is a map I had no clue existed until I was literally playing it. It seeks to combat those center-based problems of its priors by putting like 3 fucking walls around the center objective. Not like I was there much though, cause I was too busy trying to play Mirror's Edge. Another good map for ducking and dodging and weaving and weaseling, and some of the architecture is a nice touch. Favela is a map that consists solely of flank points and virtual displays of poverty and massive unrest. Even the center point is lined with anything but sightlines. Come to Brazil, though. This map is at its best when you're running around at inhuman speeds and hole-punching people with SMGs. Of course, this map would be a lot better if you could get in those tanks, but hey, I understand there's limitations to these things. Derrick is an ever-enduring plight of a location equatable only to that of Sisyphus. It somehow has a worse spawn-to-kill ratio than Containers of Fun, despite being, like twice the size and 3 times as open. If you got into the map losing, then don't expect an easy battle to exit a 50-foot radius of your own team's spawn. Do expect to get your block knocked off, however. If this map was a person, I would spit on it. Next one. Rig is the good version of Derrick, which is why I call it Rick. The spawn placements seem to be just as bad, but there's plenty of nearby buildings and underground segments to duck into and get behind the enemy. Buildings are also convenient for getting all your steps in for the day because, dear God, is there a lot of stairs before the roof. No sightline issues with this one, really, as long as you have even a shred of spatial awareness, that is. Blacksite is a map that makes up for its long sightlines with its close combat. Every corner and piece of clutter offers protection. Even dead center, you still have some partial coverage to work with instead of being a big old fat traffic cone. A soldier hopped up on 4 Loco and Adrenochrome sees these as mere obstacles in the way of bloodshed, however, and will take no issue with this, reaching Mach 3 to gun you down before you even knew they were there. If you've played Battlefield 4, this map might look familiar. A little too familiar, one could say. Ravad 2016 is just an actual Battlefield map known as Zavad 311. Even the name is almost a direct rip, changing Zavad to Ravod, and changing 311 to 911. I guess we never forget or something, I don't know. But what I do know is that the outcome of most matches on this map heavily depends on who has map superiority. If the other team has control of the rooftops, then you're going to have a good struggle and a half trying to close in on them. And if you're the one on top, make sure to keep your third eye lubricated, because the moment you blink is the moment you splatter on the ground below from a bullet to the back. Ravad Revamp is the point in this list where I start to ponder just how many remakes of maps there are, and the fact that a majority of the maps they are remaking are also in the current map pool, rendering the necessity of remaking said maps seem a little non-existent. Actually, no. You know what? I'm done with this malarkey. I'm going to protest this flagrant abuse of power by not spending 30 seconds talking about this map. That'll show them not to mess with me and my mega influencer status. Can you tell I have delusions of grandeur? Crane Site Revamp is a map that proves my point. It's honest about what it is, yet the crane isn't that important, really. With a name like Crane Site, you'd think the big center point of the map would be a big crane with a bunch of scaffolding or something to fight in, but it's kind of pushed off to the side of the map. It's not like people crawling up there with 50 cals aren't a problem, yet the crane in Mall is arguably a more important spot. Most of the action happens somewhere in one of the 3 central buildings, save for more distant opponents taking shots from the back building and the round thingies. Mirage Revamp hits Crane Site with a sucker punch while they're down by having a crane that is useful. You want to know a fun fact I just made up? This is actually winterage after the effects of global warming. It's a map where longer ranged weapons can dominate, but there's enough routes through all the buildings that you can get up close and personal without getting out in the open in most cases. If you want to play winterage without pulling your hair out as soon as your character gets frostbite, then you should check with your doctor to see if this is the right map for you. Despite playing for hours on end, there is still a good chunk of maps in the current rotation that I never played in, alongside a map or 3 I remember that aren't currently in play, so I'm dropping the thinly veiled attempted effort and giving a review on the map based on whatever images of it are on the Phantom Forces wiki, and the faint memories of playing them from whenever and wherever. Bazaar is the prequel to Bazaar Revamp, so just replay that part of the video again and pretend I'm talking about this one. Crane Site is Crane Site Revamp Senior. You remember that thing I said like 5 seconds ago? Do it again. Elevation is a map I have fond memories of, attempting to do a dive jump on the edge of and falling 1,000 feet to my death on. Keep an eye on the floors above and below you at all times, because that's more likely than not the place you're going to get shot from. Ruins was one of my favorites, mostly because of how visually different it is. The underground sections lead to a building behind both spawns, so do with that information what you must, and there's plenty of vantage points inside the ruins to take advantage of. Plaza, also known as the Mall Revamp that's not called Mall Revamp, is a strong alternative to its third cousins twice removed. Transit is a hectic but welcome crossbreed between Mall and Plaza. A balance of wide open spaces and tight-ass hallways lets you attempt to go guns blazing, or low-to-the-ground suppressors only while still getting some points in. Blizzard was a quaint little snowy town made significantly less quaint by the constant gunfire. It is permanently removed from the map pool according to the wiki, which from what I can recall is not unexpected. Jungle Revamp was a map that required you to be playing Fortunate Son on repeat for full immersion. It was pretty fun, and if memory serves me right, I spent a lot of time hiding in the temple with a shotgun. To add even more to this list, there is also variations of maps made specifically for themed events, especially Halloween and Christmas. Like the Halloween version of a map called Refinery that was then de-spookified into Castle Keep. I would get footage of these, yet I find myself unable to time travel to a holiday in order to do that. Like I said at the beginning of this segment, the map selection, whilst majorly solid, doesn't ever reach the level of perfection. There is a definite positive I have for all the maps though, and it's that they try different layouts. Like there's an actual difference in how you would play one map compared to another instead of tweaking a 3-lane into a 3.5 lane. Even if a map isn't all that good, I'd much prefer it over something that was made in a cloning facility. And if there's anything boundless amounts of revamps tell me, it's that trial and error is not to be shied away from. Team Deathmatch is just that. A match with a team where the only objective is to kill. It's Expected? Not that I'm complaining, of course, but there's not much I can say for Team Deathmatch. It's Team Deathmatch. Since there is no actual objective aside from using your guns, it's all about how good you are at shooting, killing, reloading, and repeating. Dog Tag Collection is Team Deathmatch with collectibles. Huh, I wonder what they are. After each kill, an enemy drops a tag you have to collect. If you get killed, you do the same. And if no one could be arsed enough to pick up the tags, then you can recollect yours and your teammates to prevent the other team from free points. Since the objective is once again to kill, but with the reason to defile their corpse afterwards, matches play no different than Team Deathmatch, with the exception of dive-bombing tag clusters to get experience, of course. Tag Run is a refreshing take on Dog Tag Collection. Instead of immediately claiming any tags you pick up, they are instead added to your stock. A stock which you can get rid of, and get experience in return, by getting into one of 3 Dog Tag Collection circles. This game mode is all about the risk and reward factor. You could kill one enemy, get 1 tag and haul ass over to a collection point, or you could slowly yet surely bide your time, awaiting the ideal moment to strike before grabbing more dog tags for your collection and returning to the shadows. Not really worth it to save them up, however, as there isn't a noticeable increase in the XP gained, if there is one at all, in comparison to dropping them off one by one. The third option, known as the Way of the Thief, is simply running around collecting everyone else's hard-earned trophies of war and redeeming them yourself like what a bully did to me in Chuck E. Cheese in 2012. That's right, Todd. I still remember, asshole. Hardpoint is a good objective that makes a somewhat boring game mode. The single point to maintain a position on forces firefights to more focused areas, if anybody cared about the objective, so most games actually come down to what 3 members of each team are better at standing still and shooting accurately. So naturally, I don't stay on the point much. The point moves every once in a while to combat this issue, and you better hope it doesn't appear right where the opposing team is posted up. Cause if it does, you might as well sit this next minute out. Flare Domination is the better version of Hardpoint. Instead of 1 point that shifts every once in a while, you have 3 permanent ones that have to be captured instead of maintained. I found that people seem to care about the objective more in this game mode. That could probably be from the fact that having 3 of them makes it easy to unintentionally start battling for one. More likely than not, you're going to be running in circles, capturing one and then going back to capture whatever one you just got 30 seconds ago. Like Tug-of-War, with more guns. King of the Hill is the basic version of the last 2. Only 1 point that doesn't move, but can be captured instead of maintained. Plays out the most like Hardpoint, so you better get your loitering gloves on and prepare to stand your ground. Since the point remains captured when you leave its radius, there's more possibility for ambush strategies and holy hand grenade 3-pointers. Capture the Flag harkens back to the simpler days of first-person shooters. A battle in Dust Bowl from a classic team shooter game comes to mind. Obviously, I'm talking about this Dust Bowl because I am 7 years old. Each side has a flag, although that is clearly a briefcase, that the other side must grab and get to their base to score up to a maximum of 5. You are not able to claim the enemy's flag if your flag has been taken from the base, however. And that's the end of the line for game modes you actually will be playing. The rest of them seem to be categorized as party modes. They don't show up in map selection unless you go to a separate server inside the test place, and if I had to guess, they are probably available for use in a private server. I got into a party server, but either the lack of people or its current testing stage made everyone immortal, so here's yet another round of assumptions. Duel is presumably a one-on-one match to best your opponent in a battle of wits and bullets. I guess the amount you like this game mode all depends on how good you are. Exfiltration is a hostage rescue game mode, maybe? Hard to say without playing it, but the definition of exfiltration would lead to this. Gun game is a regular for any FPS requiring a fun game mode. You are forced to use a specific weapon for each kill. If you get a kill with the final weapon, usually a knife, first, then you win. Recovery could be some variation of capture the flag or exfiltration. Taking a wild guess here, but you might have to recover something in it. Stab is probably a melee-only game mode. Melee weapons are a far greater tool of destruction when they aren't against LMGs and 50 cals, so it sounds fun. Swap possibly functions like gun game, but you get your recently obliterated opponent's weapon instead of a predetermined one. I would not mind any of these game modes being in the regular rotation. It's nice to play something else than the slightly altered versions of the same handful of game modes every once in a while. Oh well, I guess I can play them when I return to my dirty-ass gaming chair like I just got back from war and start playing this game again in a decade's time. As for the regular game modes, nothing's necessarily new. They've all been in previous FPS games, not breaking new ground here or anything, but they're all done as good as they can be. It's really hard to screw up a pre-established game mode where all the rules have already been laid out for like decades, so I'm not entirely shocked by that. Microtransactions are as much a part of the modern-day FPS as an extremely cinematic, but ultimately okay-ish campaign mode. Add in the fact that Phantom Forces is on ROBLOX too, and you can just see the children's wallets burning away in anguish. Hey kiddos! Have you ever been sitting in a hot, locked car watching your parents stroll into the casino and think, man, I wish I could gamble too? Well, wish no more. As long as you have ROBLOX on that device of yours, you too can succumb to the plague that's infected every middle-aged Russian man with a Steam account. The plague, of course, being skin gambling. Instead of using that hard-earned allowance on, I don't know, Prime, little Timmy would rather spend that money on virtual currency to buy a different virtual currency to buy a case and key that may or may not give him the skin he wants. Realistically, the microtransactions in Phantom Forces could be a hell of a lot worse. You can't buy anything specific by paying for it that you couldn't get from just playing the game and getting enough money. Of course, it's a lot easier to spend $100 and get everything than spend 100 hours and get a couple things. But you can also sell any skin you get too. So if you get an extremely rare skin that's worth a pretty penny, then you can just sell it if you don't feel like using it and get enough money to buy whatever attachment you want. There's also blueprints in the store, featuring guns with their own attachment presets. If you equip the blueprint, you can't change the attachments on it, but if you buy it, you do get to keep the attachments for if you want to make your own build. And they typically come at about a 10 or 15% discount compared to buying them separately. If there was any way to handle microtransactions that can still technically give you the edge up in the game over other people, but doesn't make it such an impossibly drastic difference where you can clearly define that it's pay to win, makes it a lot better than some other games. So, why play it? Why not play it? For the issue of cost, there isn't one. For the issue of quantity, it has more content than most AAA games will get after their year one DLCs. And for the issue of quality, I might give you that one. The game has only been getting more effort put into it as of recent, with what appears to be a slight visual revamp being tested in the test place. So there might be a point in time where what could be considered a big issue of the game, that being, the graphics of course, is a problem of the past. Sure, it's lacking in a few complexities shared by its veteran counterparts, but it wasn't made by an impossibly large company with a floor of people tapping their fingers down to the bone 25 hours a day now, was it? And in that vein, Phantom Forces almost serves as a homage to the older FPS games, where the best weapon you had was the gun in your hand and not the boost you're gonna get 30 seconds and 400 points later. It's simple, but not stupid. The less predatory practices towards monetization are nice too. Real disappointed I didn't unlock the Pickle Rick skin.
I'm gonna beat my wife, Morty. I'm gonna beat my fucking wife.
Does this mean I have zero issues with it? No. I have quite the qualms about the unlock and leveling system. The leveling system starts off pretty fun and easy, but it quickly becomes an absolute fucking chore to level up. Let's put it this way. The first level takes 1000 XP to get through, which you can get pretty easily. In most game modes, just killing an enemy gets you 100 XP alone without headshots or flag carrier multipliers or any of that. Then, level 2 takes 2000 XP. Okay, fair enough. and at this point you can still get 2,000 in a quick play session. By level 50, however, you now have to get the equivalent of 500 standard kills to level up once. The same issue with impossibly high numbers goes for the guns too. This progression and unlock system itself is not the issue. If it was, it wouldn't be in use in 90% of any game ever. It's the inconceivably large investments you'd have to put towards this game that is. Now, to play devil's advocate, attachments can be bought and used regardless of kill count, and if you play semi-regularly, it's not difficult to get a couple skins to sell. But that requires tangible money to be spent, and dropping 20 bucks on Robux to get one scope for one gun gets expensive fast. Reducing the higher unlock requirements by even just a couple hundred each would shave literal hours off of the playtime necessary to keep progressing. And I'd imagine would lead a lot more players to see through to all of a weapon's unlocks because the end goal is a lot more feasible. Hey, don't take it from me though. Just play it for yourself, man. I mean, what else are you gonna do? Become a big money mogul in Shrek Swamp Tycoon? Hey, if you want to spend money to play Shrek Swamp Tycoon, then be my guest. But I have some more necessary items to purchase.
Holy calamity, scream insanity! All you ever gonna be's another great fan of me. Bang! Yeah, we will.